Idaho just went through one of the biggest population swings in its modern history. We watched over 100,000 Idahoans leave the state in the last few years, and if you saw my last video, you already know why. Cost of living, political change, stress on infrastructure, and a culture that feels like it's shifting faster than the people living here can keep up with. But here's the part most people don't talk about. While 100,000 people left, around 200,000 new people moved in. Idaho isn't emptying out, Idaho is transforming. And today, we're breaking down exactly who is moving here, where they're coming from, what they believe, and why it matters for the future of Idaho. We're gonna look at 9 major groups, and I think you're gonna recognize every single one of them. Number 1, political and safety refugees. Let's kick this off with the biggest group, the folks who showed up in Idaho looking like they just escaped a disaster movie. Because honestly, some of their cities kind of look like one. Most of them are coming from places like California, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, and Texas. What ties these areas together isn't complicated. They're dealing with rising crime, widespread homelessness, aggressive taxation, and a political climate where it often feels like criminals get more protection than everyday families. A lot of people reached a breaking point. They looked around their neighborhoods and said, I don't feel safe, my kids don't feel safe, and there's no sign this is improving. So they left, and Idaho quickly became one of the top destinations they chose. These people aren't just switching zip codes, they're relocating their values. Some lean conservative, some are moderate, and some used to vote blue but no longer feel represented in their home states. When you ask this group why they left, they all say the same thing. Well, everything except my property taxes was on fire. Number 2, family and faith movers. Next up are the families, the parents who said, you know what? I want my kids to have a childhood, not a trauma timeline. These are the folks looking for structure, safety, and a place where community actually means something. Many of them are coming from places like Utah, Texas, Montana, Wyoming, and California. These families are searching for strong community ties, conservative or balanced school districts, and the freedom to educate their kids in a way that reflects their values, whether that's public school, private school, or homeschooling. They want a place where the kids can ride bikes, play outside, and grow up without being influenced by the social chaos happening in bigger cities. For a lot of these families, Idaho checks every box. When they visit, they see a place where the pace is slower, the people are friendlier, and the overall environment feels safer. And for anyone curious, my name is Trent, and on this channel we talk about what living life in Idaho is really like. If that's something you are interested in, make sure you tap that subscribe button and hit that little notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you are one of those people seriously looking at moving to Idaho, feel free to reach out at the phone number or email address listed below, or you can scan this QR code to schedule a time to talk with me and my team. We can create a custom list of areas here in Idaho that match your wants and needs best. It's what we do all day, every day, and it doesn't cost you a thing. Number 3, retirees and empty nesters. All right, let's talk about the group moving here for peace and quiet, retirees. They spent decades grinding in big cities and finally decided, you know what? Let's go somewhere that actually feels like living. This is one of the biggest and fastest growing segments moving into the state, and they're showing up in big numbers. Most of them are coming from places like California, Washington, Colorado, and a wide stretch of the Midwest. A lot of these folks just spent the last few decades living in crowded metros, fighting traffic, and paying off mortgages that could buy 2 homes here in Idaho. And what they're looking for is pretty simple, a clean and peaceful place to enjoy the next chapter of their life. They want mountain views, lakes, good air, small town pacing, lower taxes, and a sense of safety they don't feel in the places they're leaving behind. Idaho checks every one of those boxes. You can already see the shift happening statewide. Idaho's older adult population is growing far faster than its young population, and in many rural counties, more than 1 of every 5 residents is already over 65. And yes, they influence the housing market, especially in rural and resort towns where that quiet living lifestyle is exactly what they came to find. Number 4, the financial refugees. This group is made up of people escaping the financial pressure cooker of high-cost states. Most of them are coming from California, Colorado, Washington, Texas, Nevada, and major East Coast hubs like Boston, New York, and DC. These are the families and professionals who looked at their monthly expenses, their taxes, their commute, and the price of a normal home and finally said, we can't do this anymore.
Everything is so expensive.
They're not looking for politics or culture. They're looking for breathing room. They want a place where mortgage doesn't feel like a chokehold and where their paycheck actually gets them somewhere. Idaho offers that combination: lower taxes, lower cost of living, and a housing market that still gives families a chance. When your rent in Seattle or Boston is the price of a mortgage in North Idaho, the choice becomes pretty easy. Because honestly, when you live in some of these blue cities, you realize it's less of a budget and more of a hostage situation. Number 5, the Self-Reliance Movers. This next group inside this category is made up of people who want something deeper than affordability. They're coming from the same states, but with a completely different mindset. These are the folks who want acreage, gardens, animals, a wood stove, and their own well. Basically, a small homestead. Think Little House on the Prairie, but with less skirts and more high-speed internet. They want independence from systems that they feel are unreliable, expensive, or unstable. A lot of them are remote workers, tech employees, or young families who finally realize they don't need to live in a city to make a living. They want land, space, privacy, and the ability to build a life with their own hands. Idaho checks every box: open land, low regulation, rural communities, and the kind of freedom that lets people create the lifestyle they want without interference. For this group, Idaho isn't just affordable, it's empowering. It represents a reset button, a chance to simplify, slow down, and live a lifestyle that feels more grounded and more aligned with their values. Number 6, spiritually disconnected and burnout migrants. This group might surprise a lot of you, but others may be able to relate. These are people who felt like their soul was getting ground down by modern life. You'll hear the same story from folks coming out of Los Angeles, San Francisco, Denver, Boulder, Seattle, New York, and Chicago. They hit a point where the pace, the pressure, and the noise stopped feeling like a life and started feeling like survival. They're nurses, tech workers, creatives, agency employees, remote workers, and high-performing professionals who woke up one day and realized nothing felt meaningful anymore. They're not running from politics, and they're not running from taxes. They're running from burnout, the kind that wears you down slowly until you finally say, I need a different life. These are the people who come to Idaho not just to live here, but to find themselves again. Number 7, the Second Amendment seekers. There's another group moving to Idaho that deserves its own category: the Second Amendment seekers. These are people leaving states where gun ownership has been treated less like a right and more like a problem the government needs to manage. They're coming from places like California, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Colorado, New York, and New Jersey. States where magazine limits, assault weapon bans, strict registration laws, and may-issue carry systems have made responsible gun ownership incredibly difficult. When you look at Idaho from their perspective, it makes sense. Idaho has some of the most permissive gun laws in the country. It's one of the strongest Second Amendment sanctuary states, and it consistently ranks among the most gun-friendly states in the US. For someone coming from a state where defending yourself requires jumping through legal hoops or waiting 10 days for ammo, Idaho feels like a breath of fresh air. These folks didn't come here to cause trouble. They came here because Idaho is one of the last states where the government doesn't freak out if you own more than a butter knife. Number 8, the opportunity chasers and market builders. There's a group of people moving to Idaho for a completely different reason: opportunity. These are the entrepreneurs, developers, investors, builders, and business-minded families who see Idaho's growth not as a threat, but as an opening. They're coming from all over the country, but large numbers are arriving from California, Texas, Colorado, and East Coast metros, where real estate markets have already peaked and opportunities are harder to find. For this group, Idaho feels like the beginning of something, not the end. They look at the rising home prices, the new construction, the demand for rentals, the influx of remote workers, and they can see exactly where the region is heading. They're also attracted by Idaho's business environment: fewer regulations, lower taxes, leaner permitting processes, and local governments that still welcome responsible development. Compare that to states where the approval process can take years, fees are crushing, and builders are treated like they're the problem. Idaho feels like the opposite, a place where if you work hard and create something of value, the state won't be standing there with a ping pong paddle ready to discipline you for doing something wrong. For them, Idaho isn't just a destination, it's the next frontier. And then finally, there's a small group that doesn't fit neatly into any category: the general lifestyle movers. This group only makes up about 2% of Idaho's newcomers, but they're still worth mentioning because their reasons are simple, human, and honestly, pretty refreshing. These are the people who didn't move here for politics, safety, opportunity, or retirement. They're not chasing lower taxes or a big lifestyle overhaul. They just liked Idaho. Maybe they visited the mountains, fell in love with the scenery, and said, you know what, I could live here. Maybe they wanted 4 real seasons again, Winter snow, bright fall colors, warm summers, and that clean Idaho spring. Some just wanted a small town pace after years of living in big metro areas, or they wanted to be closer to family that already made the move. Their motivations aren't dramatic or complicated. They simply preferred what Idaho offered over where they were. They're the ones who saw Idaho, felt Idaho, and thought, yeah, this is home. If you're watching this and thinking about moving here yourself, or you want help figuring out which part of Idaho fits your lifestyle best, reach out at the phone number or email address listed below, or scan this QR code to schedule a call with me or my team. This is what I do every day. My team and I help people make the move with clarity, confidence, and zero pressure. Make sure you subscribe for more deep dive videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.